Hi, everyone. It's Kelly from the Hub here today with our friend Todd from Tabor Community Services / LHOP. Hello there, Todd. How are you?
Hey, Kelly, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Remember, Todd spends some time with us every week and we talk about how to be frugal. And today we are going to do a walkthrough with the new eviction prevention program called that we all call ERAP, which is I think I'm doing it all right. The Emergency Rental Assistance Program. Is that what we're doing? Okay.
You
Whew.
got it.
In my head, it was right. If you haven't known, people in housing, sort of like people in medicine, really like their acronyms. So we're just going to do it that way. So ERAP is the new program to help people who have been affected by COVID to pay for both their rent or their utilities and fees associated with being in arrears in rent. So there's a website to do everything on, which is really, really helpful. So Todd and I are going to walk through it and we're going to talk about it. So if you're doing it for the first time, you can look at it. Or if you're in the middle of it and you get stuck, you can go, let's watch it again. All right. So first, Todd, you want to share your screen and we will tell everybody how we're doing this. The first thing you do is you go to lancasterhelp.rent. That's the website. It's going to send you right over to what you see up here on the screen, which looks like other letters that are complicated to know, and you don't have to know that, but it's just going to take you over there, and this is what it will look like: lancasterhelp.rent. And it looks like this. So Todd, why don't you start us with the program, and I will just ask some questions as we go.
All right. So this has been open for about a week, a little over a week, I guess. And we have lots of applications in process. But one of the things that you want to see here is when you get on the website, obviously notice it's in different languages as well. And we can do more languages for the application as well. But the online application button is where you want to start. Some folks have gone into the applicant access right away, and then it's asking them for a PIN number. If you're being asked for a PIN number, you're in the wrong place.
Right. Right.
So I want to make that clear. So when you click on online application, it's going to take you. Nope.
Yep.
There we go. It's going to take you here to waitlist check. And the reason why I want to make sure we look at the name of this is a wait list. This is not the application, and then all of a sudden you're going to get approved and there's going to be a check in the mail and everything's going to be completed right away. This is to get you on the list for someone to actually check to see if you're eligible. And this is the first step. So once you come in here, then obviously you're not going to have a username and password already. You have to go to register now. That's in the orange color there. It says not a user yet, register now. So I'm not going to click on that right now. So if you click on that, then it'll ask you to set up a username, set up a password. You do need to have an email address. So if you don't have an email address on the actual screen as well, it will walk you through how to get a Gmail account.
Yeah, it says it in the words, need an email address, and then you just click right there and you can get your own free Gmail, which is really handy.
So once you're in there, then it's going to be the actual application that you're going to fill out and answer all the questions that are asked. I know there's going to be a lot of stuff there. Go ahead and answer all the questions, answer like your name, address, phone number, email address, all those type of things, but also additional questions that it's going to ask about your situation. Mm-hmm. The thing that's different about this program than some of the programs in the past is this is going to be prioritized by the need. So if someone is late for 6 months versus someone who is late for 1 month, the one that has a 6 month late is going to be processed first. The only difference would be if between the two, the one with 1 month late was in jeopardy of losing their housing, like they are already going to court, where the person that was 6 months late is not, for whatever reason, then that could change the process And then that would have prioritized the other person. So there's different weightings. The problem is we're probably going to have hundreds of people in a high weighting, high prioritization. So another part of this process is to be patient. I know no one wants to be patient at this point. They've been waiting a long time for some of these services, but we are getting to them as quickly as possible. And like I said, I'm going to repeat it again. When you do that first step under online application, that is a wait list. That is part one. Part two is the applicant access. And go
So
ahead, Kelly.
before we move to part two, one thing that I want to talk about, since I've helped some people go through this, is that you need no documentation for part one. Part one is you talking about what's happened with your rent, what's happened with your utilities, how COVID has affected your life, if you've lost wages, if you've lost your job, if you're on unemployment. And then it's going to ask you some questions, but you can make your best judgment and guess about those. Now, I'm not saying, you're willy-nilly throwing numbers out there. You're looking at where are you in terms of your best estimate of numbers. You don't have to have exacts, just give a nice estimate so that people who are looking at it can figure out where you go in that list. So don't worry about documentation for the first time. So then once you're finished with that, what happens next, Todd?
Well, it can take up to 3 days, and then that will be transferred over to Assistance Connect, which is a separate website.
So when you're finished with that first online application, it actually gives you a receipt. What's super helpful about that is that you can give that to, well, first of all, you can take a picture of it, you can print it, you can download it, you can do a lot of things to make it work for you. You can show your landlord or your utility company that you are in process. And that's helpful because then that lets them know that you are making an effort to rectify this and trying to get assistance. So remember, keep that application. I was helping someone here and he said, can you make 4 copies of that receipt? And I said, 4 copies? And he goes, I'm just giving it to everybody. I'm giving it to everybody. Then everybody knows. I said, of course, absolutely.
Yeah,
So
another part of that is if you have a court date, the magistrate will want to see that to show that you're in process.
perfect, because that will help your case as well. That will help your case. All right. So do you want to do applicant access or do you want to do other parts of this?
I'm going to do the applicant access,
Okay,
and then I want to
fine.
scroll down and show a few different things.
Perfect.
So that one there is going to take you to Assistance Connect. Now you can click on this the same day you do the other application. The problem is the information here is not going to be loaded in here for your username and password.
Right.
I would say you could check maybe the next day. It might be in there, but it can take up to 3 days.
Right.
So this username and password is the same as what you just used to do the other one here on this. So whatever you set up here is now going to be used here. So don't click over here
Yeah.
in these sections where it says applicants, tenants, and property owners.
Don't do
Because
that.
if you click that, they're going to create a separate account. They're going to ask for a PIN number. That's that wrong area we were talking about.
Right. And then crazy things are going to happen and you're going to get frustrated and you're going to call people frustrated. So don't do that. But right, if you put the same username and password into that box and you click sign in, you go right to where you're supposed to go and it's perfect.
Now, if you forgot or you didn't write it down or you lost the paper or whatever, you can go to forgot username and password and reset it right on this screen. So this is the second part of the application where it's going to ask for the documentation to prove what you said in the first application. And to Kelly's point, if the numbers are slightly off, you're not going to get arrested.
Right.
There's no problems here.
Right.
We're just confirming things now. And yes, you want to be careful in the initial application to make sure you put the right numbers in. Like we had one person that put in that I think they made like, let's say $2,000 a month, but they put it in as $2,000 a week. And then it showed they made over like $1 million a year. So they got declined, but someone called them up and said, hey, by the way, what is the frequency of how you get paid? Oh, well, that's monthly. So we changed it and now they're back in the
Right.
process again.
Right.
So people do check them and make sure that if we get something unusual like that.
Right. Right. And like that's really important to know. There are real human beings who are checking these. These are not going through like an automated system that is making that like determination. Todd's team is actually doing that.
Yes.
They are physically with their eyeballs looking at stuff. So know that. And also just so you know, if you make a mistake, you can go back up through the levels and fix the little bits as you go through. And even at the end, you can review it. Or if you go back, like you just do it because you're just doing it. And then 2 days later you went, oh no, I forgot about the whatever it was that you forgot about. You can go back in and change it. It's totally okay. It's totally okay.
And the same thing with the uploads part. If
Yes.
someone will call you or email you or text you later on saying, hey, we've looked at your documentation and we still need this piece of documentation, then you can go back into the Assistance Connect and upload another document.
Yep.
So it's not like you have one chance or then you strike out.
Right. Right. The goal was to make this very easy for people and very user friendly.
I'm going to scroll down here. There's a application access. That's where you're going to upload the documentation. But there is one, I'll just in a passing here, because I'm looking more towards how the tenants are using this. But landlords can actually get in and access and see where the process is for any of their properties. So they can go in and they could upload documents or that they will need so we can direct deposit funding. So we're not sending checks in the mail and it's taking extra time. Once we're actually making the payments, it will be a little bit quicker. But landlords, you do have an option here. If you need any help, there's the helpline. That's whether it's a landlord or a tenant. 717-590-3101. That's an important number.
I will tell you, it's very handy for landlords because, like, for example, I'm working with 2 different landlords and actually 2 different real estate companies, and which have landlords, and probably together they have about 5 or 6 in each. So that is a way that they don't have to look at, apartment 2, apartment 7, apartment 9. They don't have to like log in individually for those. They go into the landlord section, they put in their information, they type the landlord that they are, and then all of their properties who have applied show up. So that lets them know at a glance which of their clients are in the middle of it and which of their clients haven't done it yet, which is very helpful.
And so there's a whole bunch of black buttons here that go over the required forms, computer access, limit, appeals, legal assistance, eviction. I think I'm going to come back to that. I want to scroll down and talk. We did talk a little bit about eligibility earlier, but eligibility for households to receive up to 12 months assistance. What that means is from March 12th of last year going forward, you can get up to 12 months of assistance at the moment. Now, there was a new stimulus check package that just went through recently, so that number could possibly change in the future, but right now it's 12 months. And it's 12 months of both rent and utilities. So if you, let's say you were part of a program last year and you got 6 months last year, this would allow you to get other months that were not covered by that program. If you had a utility bill that started in December of 2019, it will not qualify for this program.
Right.
It will only qualify from that March 12th going forward. And we do have ways to reach out to the utility companies and get that number, to separate that back number and just get the number going forward.
Right.
So we can help you with that. But important things will be like your copy of your bills and stuff like that. The payment of existing arrears. And I know that Kelly said it, but also possibly going forward. So depending on how much you need. Now, if you need from March of last year to March of this year, well, that's 12 months.
Right.
We're gonna have to have a conversation once the new stimulus stuff comes through to see how many more months you might be eligible for. But you could get it all at once. We're not going to say, oh, well, we'll pay 1 month and then come back and see us. We're going to pay the whole arrearage. And at this point, don't worry about the dollar amount.
Right.
Let us just put it in there and let us work our process to make sure that every dollar that is owed to the landlord or the utility, our goal is to pay all of it. That's within that time period.
So, I mean, for example, like, let's say some companies shut down right away. Some companies didn't. So let's say you lost your job in July or November, and your company decided that they're going to reopen on June 1st of 2021. So that's how you would be able to, because you now know I'll have a job on June 1st of 2021, but until that point, I'm still unemployed. Well, then that's what we mean by things in the future, because you know what your date is. Now, for people who don't know what their date is, we're still going to be looking at that. So know that that's going to be, ongoing as we work on that.
And the second part here is eligibility, is that you have to have a COVID related concern. That's how I like to put it, because it could be a job loss. It could be because I couldn't take care of my children, or I had to take care of my children because they couldn't go to school or they didn't have daycare. It could be related that there was a medical issue that was COVID related. Now, if someone just had a heart attack and there was no relation to COVID, then that doesn't count as that medical hardship at that point.
Right.
But there's a lot of ways to get things connected that there's a COVID reason for it. So if you think that you might be qualified, send the application in. We will let you know. We'll have those conversations. You have to have a risk of becoming homeless, which means you get eviction notice or a letter or an email from your landlord or property manager saying that if you don't pay, you're going to be removed from the property at some point. Those type of things, we do need to have that. And then also you need to be below 80% of the median income. So I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom. Dismiss that. And we have the income limits. We have them at 50% and 80%. 80% is what is the limits. The reason why we show the 50% is this program is supposed to prioritize clients that are 50% and below in income before anybody else. Now, that's one factor. It could be all bunch of factors that then prioritizes that person towards the top. So if you fit these guidelines of a single household under 27,000, household of 2, 31, so on and so forth. Same thing at the 80%, starts at the 44, 550, and then works its way up. These numbers here is how many people are in your household. So if you and a roommate live together, that's 2. If you're a family of 4, two parents and 2 children, then you're up here. And so, and we did it up to 8. If you have more than 8, let us know. We have the calculations for that. But yeah, we put it up to 8, which covers most of the households we're dealing with. But I thought that was important to put both the 50 and the 80% down so people understand. They go, oh, I am below that 27,580. So that means that's another priority that I could be pushed up higher on the list. So I'm going to scroll back up. And I think we touched a lot of this over on the rental assistance, going back to March. Utilities, rent goes forward and back. We need a copy of the signed lease. So all of those things I think we talked about. Under utilities, the biggest one is that you have copies of bills, because we need the account numbers. So if you can get, even if it's just the most recent copy, now if you have them going back, then great, supply what you have. But if we have at least the most current, we might be able to work with most of the utility companies to give us the numbers we need to as far back as we need it. And don't be afraid of the numbers. Again, we've seen utility bills of $10,000 or
Yep.
more.
Yep.
So it happens, and it's been a long time. It's been a year.
Yeah.
So in some instances, some of these could be high. So I've had some folks say, well, I'm not submitting that in because I'm embarrassed, or they're
Yeah.
not going to pay it.
Don't be embarrassed.
Yep. Nope. We're not.
It's a pandemic, honey. We've seen it all.
It's not going to be in the newspaper on Sunday. We're not posting these
Right.
anywhere. It's all private.
Right.
So yeah, please submit what you have and let us do our process to try to help you through this process.
Yeah.
And then
I actually really like the other expenses side, because in the previous program for helping with rent, it didn't cover fees. So there are landlords who have fees for, for things that are whatever they're for. Sometimes if you have a grace period to pay for 4 or 5 days, and then maybe the 5th day it's 5%. The 6th day it's 5%. The 7th day it's 5%. And those fees can really add up. There were, I know a few people who they were concerned more about their fees than they were about their rent, because their fees were just, becoming insurmountable. This program also helps cover will cover the fees if you qualify. Now, how do you show that? There's a letter from your landlord. Your landlord wants to get paid, so they're going to easily have a letter for you to show you how that stuff works.
Now, the other part of that is it does have to be disclosed in your lease.
Correct.
So if the lease doesn't
see that.
Yeah, if the lease says we charge a $10 late fee, and now the landlord is telling you it's $50, we're going to pay the $10 late fee because that's what's in the lease.
Right.
So we will confirm that. If there's no fee disclosed in the lease, we may have a problem paying those late fees. So we will have that discussion with the landlord or property manager. The required forms. So I'm going to start with, there's a document checklist, but we're going to start, there's an attestation and certification of COVID impact for income and financial hardship. Now these two are both the same. One's just a regular document you can print and write it out. The other one is a fillable PDF document that you can do online. But this is just saying you're attesting to the impact of COVID on your financial situation. So there's nothing real challenging or difficult about it. Just fill in the blanks and you submit that form. Authorization for release of information. We have to be able to talk to your landlord. We have to be able to talk to your utility. We have to be able to talk between partners here, like Kelly might be helping you out. So this just gives us that release to be able to talk on your behalf to get that information. Duplication of assistance. So let's say you got assistance last year from the RRP program, the rental relief program, or one of the other programs, and it covered from July through December. You can't ask for July through December again. That's what this is double checking, that you're not asking for the same months of service. So if you got it, doesn't mean it negates that you can't get service. Let's say the other program couldn't pay your March one for some reason.
Right.
We can now pay March through June and then pick up again in January.
Right.
It doesn't have to be in monthly order.
Right. And this also helps, some people ask other organizations in their community for help, like a church or another organization, and that has funds. And so be honest about that and say, yes, we had our church gave us utility money for $100 in November. Okay, that's perfectly great. And then we'll just know not that you won't get extra utility money for that month because you already got that money. So it's really important to be honest about that.
Yep. And like I said, it's not going to affect how much
right.
It should have already paid for those things. So it's not going to affect any of the months that you have owed still.
Right.
And then the statement of rent and utility arrears. So that's a statement, just if you can get it from your landlord, which most landlords don't have a problem giving this. It's just an invoice saying, this is what you owe. You owe these months. And then here's the fees. And then the same time on the utilities. Now, the utility part could be more challenging. So that's what I'm saying. If you can't get it, this is just a statement saying this is what you think it is.
Right.
And then we're going to confirm it with the landlord or the utility at that point. So these, and so uploading documents, there's a video here from MRI Flicks here that shows you how to send your documents through. That would be a good thing to review as well. There's a couple of documents for landlords or owners. And then the part that I really wanted to get to here was computer access and assistance.
Before we do that, can we show them the rest of the documents?
Sure. Well, yeah, we go up here and do the document checklist.
Yeah. So those are the forms that you get on the system. So if you look at this sheet, which tells you all the forms that you need, those forms are essentially 3 through 6. So 1 is your lease. So these are the ones that you actually need to put together, find, discover, ask about 1, 2, and 7, which is pretty easy considering programs. Being able to come up with 3 things, not too terrible. 1 is the lease. 2 is how much did you get paid and when did you get paid? And when did you get paid? And you can see there are lots of ways to do that. You don't have to get A through I. You can get as many of those that work for you. Some of them are about unemployment. Some of them are your bank statements. Some are the last tax documents. If you just have your W-2s because you haven't done your taxes yet, you can do those. There are lots of ways that you can show how much you made during 2020 and 2021 to be able to show that stuff. So don't think that you got to do them all. You have to do the ones that work for you.
And the thing that I would point out here is twofold. One is we want to see, like it says 2020 1040, your IRS, your tax return. Don't do the 2019. Right. Some people might have their tax return. I'll just bring my 2019s. We want to show the loss for 2020. So 2020 would be the one you would want to do, or your W-2s if you haven't done those yet. With pay stubs, it's either the pay stubs or letter F, the bank statements. You don't need both. So the bank statements is if you can't find pay stubs or you have a hard time printing pay stubs, you can use bank statements. You can do that also for some of the other things, like if you have Social Security and other things that are direct deposited and it's hard to get a copy of whatever that is, then you can use the actual bank statements to get that. And I would say give us at least 1 month, but 2 months would be nice,
right,
to be able to show, especially if it's only paid once a month, like Social Security or something.
Yep. I think that I is also important. That's when I look at I think of people who are like in the hospitality industry, specifically wait staff, bar staff, those kinds of things. That's complicated, right? Because a lot of your wages come in tips. So how do you show some of that? But your employer can say, we were closed from here to here. Sally used to get on average 26 hours a week or 40 hours a week, and now she only gets 10 hours a week. So I think that, and your employer can do that for you to make that easier. Because it might be hard for some people that may be like, well, this is my pay stub, but it doesn't show you what it needs to show you. And so you can, and that's why I think I like the flexibility of all of the ways in 2. And then 7, we also talked about as well. 7 is sort of included in there. Every single landlord will do that for you in a second and a half, because you are, right? You are late. And if you have an eviction notice, you will have that as well. Don't throw that out if you get it. So that's why this.
All right. So let's
that's
go
why
back
this
over.
is good.
Yep. So yeah, those are super important things that Kelly was bringing up about that list. You want to make sure that you supply everything that you can to give us the best possible picture. The more you give us initially up front, the less we're going to have to ask for, the quicker this will go through. But I will reiterate, will not be reviewed for eligibility until you complete the application and you upload the documents. So I don't want people, like I've gotten emails today that I have to respond to saying, I've not seen anything yet on this and they haven't uploaded anything. So you need to do the application and then you do need to do the upload. And then beginning next week, we will be doing eligibility based on the people that have submitted both of them. And then we will start working our way down the list. If you haven't submitted them, we might start sending you emails. So you want to check your email to say, hey, we need this document or we need this piece of information. And then here, this is where if you say, well, you know what, Todd and Kelly, I have no idea how to do this stuff on the computer. I don't have a computer. My cell phone is old. I have a flip phone. Whatever at that point, I don't know how to do all of this stuff. Or you just would rather have someone help you do it, then you can call one of these places. I'm going to scroll slowly down the list, but you want to notice that almost all of these, you want to call up beforehand and make an appointment, because you want to make sure when you get there that if they have 3 computers available, that one of them is there for you.
Right.
And that you're not sitting around waiting for it.
Right.
So
the hub is absolutely on there. Todd will scroll through and show you where that is. You can see that there are other community hubs all around the county. There we are. Woohoo! And we have 4 computers and a scanner to be able to help. We don't list hours there because I want you to be able to call and then we can talk about what works best for you. But you can see there are places all around. So if you're in Columbia and watching this, you can go to Columbia Life Network. If you are in Solenco, you can go to the Solenco Family Ministries, which I think was somewhere closer to the top, or somewhere around in there. So there are lots of places that you can go all around the county to get help, and everybody who is working at any of these places are there to be able to help you. That's exactly what we're doing, which is pretty awesome.
Yep. So there's a lot of them, and I've been getting great responses from the clients that have applied, that they were able to find the help they needed. Like I said, my only 2 cents worth there is to call ahead or email ahead and make an appointment. That way you're not getting frustrated if you're there and you have to wait for half an hour because the computer is being used at the moment. Yep. They're also at the bottom a notice to quit sample. So that's something that a landlord tenant can use to show that there's you're going to stop having this relationship if we don't get paid. Landlord tenant eviction hearing notice sample, and notice to quit non-payment sample. So we give you some examples of eviction notices if you haven't got something official from your landlord or property manager that you guys can fill out together to be able to do that. So we have the proper documentation. So to scroll back up, I think the last things here, we talked about the required forms, we talked about computer access and assistance, the income limits. Appeals is if you do get something back from us saying that you were not approved, that number one, we do have other resources we're going to try to attempt to move you towards. But if you feel that we're wrong, that's fine. We could deny something because we tried to respond to you and we didn't get any response back. So it's not that you couldn't get approved, it's that we didn't have all the documentation. So if we wait about 2 weeks and we don't hear anything from you, then we may just go and put it in a declined status or a pending status, and you would have to appeal that at that point. So you would just be going in, and there's a process for that to say, hey, I don't agree with whatever happened, and I want to move forward now. So there's a process for that. We know those are going to happen. legal assistance. So if you're saying, you know what, I want to do this, but my landlord is really fixed on taking me to court and having me removed, then you could call for legal assistance. The same thing on the landlord side. If you're having issues with a tenant and you want to know what your rights are in the process, you could call legal assistance, and they can walk you through those steps to see if you're eligible through mid-pen or possibly the bar association, depending on the situation. But this is a two-way street, and I always like to reiterate it with any of these type of conversations. This program is kind of tenant driven, but it is trying to make both the landlord and the tenant whole. There isn't like, oh well, we're only trying to help one side. No, we understand this is a symbiotic relationship here. If we help one, we're helping the other.
Right.
And so the goal is to help both parties become whole in this process. So I don't want to feel like we're beating up on a big bad landlord, or vice
Right.
versa. I'm beating up on a tenant. That we're here to try to help both ends of this process. So your assistance in this process is very helpful, and will allow us to be able to do this in a expedient way.
I have to say, I think walking through this is really helpful because, first of all, we absolutely know that there are a lot of people who are in this for the first time and they've never had to navigate any of this stuff, and it's can be difficult to navigate it. We're still in a pandemic, and there are a lot of still, people are getting sick, and you still wearing a mask and all those kinds of things. So we have all of those organizations who want to help you because we know that. So feel free to reach out to anybody who's on that list for help. Um, that's what we're doing. We know that this can be complicated. We know that this can be a strange road that you've never been on before, but we are absolutely excited to be able to help you through this. And Todd and his team are very excited to be able to look at everybody's application and be able to, talk about who can get it and how we can make this work and how can we do this. Remember, they're in the business of trying to make this work for you as well. They're not sitting there with scowly faces on trying to make this difficult for everybody. The goal
I will
is
say,
that we get people whole on both sides.
and we're looking at every application to how do we say yes,
Yeah,
not how do we say no.
right.
And that's a big deal. There's a lot of folks out there that they'll, how do we say no here? No is easy. Yes, it can be a little more difficult sometimes.
Absolutely. And I mean, one of the things that I absolutely know about Lancastrians is that we like to have things done by people we know in the place we live. And that's absolutely happening with this program. People are doing this. They are being careful about making sure that they do this right and trying to make this work for everybody. So don't think that this is getting farmed out to Iowa or Hong Kong or Canada, for heaven's sakes. This is being done by all the people that you see when you go somewhere. So Todd, thank you very much. This was really helpful. I know there's going to be some of you out there who are going to pause and rewind, pause and rewind, pause and rewind. It's okay. You can watch it as many times because you're like, wait, what is the part about that? It's okay. Just watch it, call, do it sooner so your landlord's a little happier with you. And then the feeling that you got it done is going to be amazing. You're going to have a huge weight off of your shoulder knowing that you did it.
And I will say that it's just not my team doing this. There's multiple organizations
Yeah,
on the
that's true.
on the back end that will be doing different parts of the utility piece, the rental piece, the payment piece. And so there's lots of people. So it's
Right, there's about 6 organizations who are doing like all that like back end work,
yes.
isn't it?
Yep,
Aren't there? Yeah.
yep. And there's been meetings to find out when we're meeting again. So yeah, there's lots of meetings. So we're working everything through, and yeah, like I said, your patience will be appreciated in this process. We're going to start eligibility next week, so please get your uploaded documents in there so you can be one of the first to be able to go through this process.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. This was great. Thank you so much, Todd.
Thank you.
See you, everybody.